increasingly people are struggling to, particularly younger generations. How do you get on that property ladder? This is why Dubai is such an interesting place, because it's a place where I think aspirations, have the possibility of being allowed to come true. When does investment become gambling? Bitcoin seems to be becoming, broadly accepted as the new digital form of gold. So every time we do anything, I'm saying, is there an AI tool which will make us be able to do that faster, better, cheaper?
Hello and welcome to BetTalks, powered to you by 0x Processing. I'm Rick Godds and I'm joined today by a guest. He is a crypto and blockchain enthusiast. He is the CEO and founder of Tokenvest, Scott Thiel. Welcome to BetTalks.
Thanks very much, Rick. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. How is 2025 treating you?
Early days, obviously, in 2025, but extremely exciting times, certainly for our business. We've secured our necessary licenses to go operational, and we're just in that moment now where we're about to start turning the business on and doing the thing we've been working towards for a number of years. So yeah, very exciting time for us, and also I think in the industry, particularly around tokenization of real world assets. This is going to be the fulcrum year that we've all been waiting for, where it actually starts to happen. So yeah, super exciting times.
Congratulations. So let me just rephrase that. You've just been granted your license for real world tokenization. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because that's big news, huh?
It is big news. So yeah, we are regulated by VARA, the Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority here in Dubai.
Wow.
And we're very excited. And the reason we kind of moved to Dubai in part was because of the comprehensive nature of the VARA framework, which is, I'd say leading the world really in terms of regulation in this space. And yeah, it was only really the dying days of, it was the 30th of December that we got the final approval for our, virtual asset broker-dealer license, which means we're now in a position to issue tokenized, product, bring that to market, and really exciting. We've got full access in terms of who's allowed to buy that product. It includes retail, qualified and institutional investors. So, really important milestone for us.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, licensed and regulated within the crypto Web3 space is very challenging. So what you've done is incredible. Tell me more on Tokenvest as a whole. I mean, obviously, you've been building up to this moment to become licensed. You moved to Dubai in the DMCC building, I believe, which is...
Yeah, we were, I think, the first tenants to move into the new crypto centre at DMCC in their new tower. Actually, again, like a lot of these things, they've been years in the making. I remember speaking to Zahir and the team back in sort of 2022, and he pointed out the window at a building that was only half built at that point, saying, you need to come to Dubai and you need to move into my new crypto centre that's going to be in that half-built building. And then, 2 years later, we came back and the building's now 81 stories tall and opened. And yeah, we're the first tenants in there. So
absolutely. Incredible. So you are a trading platform, comes obviously under an exchange license. Tell our viewers here at BetTalks, what would they expect by getting involved with Tokenvest? What are the benefits to it? Because there's a lot of exchanges out there. Let's face the fact.
There are a lot of crypto exchanges out there. Yeah. We are not a crypto exchange. So we use the same technology as cryptocurrency. It's a tokenized, representation of rights that's trading on a blockchain. And so just like crypto, it benefits from all of the fractionalization, instant settlement, liquidity, tradability, fractionalization ability, all of those good things that comes with the technology, if you like. The difference, the fundamental difference between, what a crypto asset is and what we are is that these represent real-world things. So they're a hybrid of traditional investment products or traditional assets.
Such as property?
Such as funds, such as commodities, fine art, anything you like, if you like. But I'd say, property is, going to be some of the first assets we do.
Yeah.
So it's leveraging the benefits of all that wonderful Web3 technology and everything we've seen with DeFi and all those other good, and exciting sort of things that have happened in that space, but with something real sitting behind it that's, a real hard asset that is not only potentially yield generating, but also capital appreciating. And so that's the fundamental difference. Now, when you say there's a lot of exchanges out there, there are not for tokenized, real world assets, because all crypto exchanges effectively are only allowed to trade cryptocurrencies. There's a growing trend towards derivatives and financial products, but essentially they are crypto assets or derivatives of crypto assets, whereas we're very much more like you would get from a traditional brokerage or a stock exchange, for example. So we could do a tokenized equity, for example, which is a real traditional financial product, but now in this new digital form. So it's the real hybridization of Web3 tech plus traditional finance.
Wow. So let's look at the property side of things, because obviously property is such a growing market, especially within the UAE.
Yep.
I'm involved in property here. It did interest me what you said before. Explain to me how you would invest within Tokenvest, within the properties. So you're actually owning a slice of property, not actually buying it outright, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And it's, there's a level of detail I'll probably skim to a certain extent, but if you think about traditional property investment, it's the ability to come in and, either buy a whole built property or, in Dubai, as is often the case, people are coming in and buying a piece of off-plan real estate. And it's quite interesting how much this market is dominated by off-plan property sales as opposed to secondary resales, and so it's a huge part of the market here in a way that frankly isn't in the rest of the world. But, I think at its core, and this really goes to our kind of why do we exist, is it's one of those extremely emotive asset classes as well. Like people understand real estate. We tend to wake up in a building, in a property. We tend to go to sleep in one. We tend to, shelter in one. We protect our families in these things. So it's not only an asset and an investment class, but it really, goes to that sort of fundamental sort of human condition of a place to be, a place to be safe, a place to live in. And it's also the largest asset class in the world. It's $300 to $400 trillion worth. Residential real estate globally is somewhere between $300 to $400 trillion. So it's an enormous asset class. Now, the challenge, I think, is it's become an increasingly unaffordable asset class. People here aspire to own property. People aspire to have a piece of, property that's an investment as well as, somewhere to live. But increasingly people are struggling to, particularly younger generations. How do you get on that property ladder?
Correct.
It's an asset class that's been getting far outstripping inflation, far outstripping, wage growth. And so we've got a global housing affordability crisis that's occurring. And, young generations today either have, the bank or mum and dad, which can work. But, again, we're starting to see when you look at the numbers, changes in demographics and people having children later in life, and bank of mum and dad's not quite what it used to be. Yeah. So all of these kind of things are putting a lot of pressure on people. People still aspire to own this asset class. Well, how do I get on that property market? Because saving up that first deposit or getting that mortgage is extremely difficult. Well, what we're now going to offer is a way of coming in and for a fraction of the cost of buying a whole one, you can come in and get exposure to a piece of one. So, the first asset we're launching, at the moment, the minimum purchase is going to be around $10,000 US. So you can come in and for $10,000 US, you can come in and get exposure to a piece of real estate. And then that, there are different products we're bringing to market, but effectively you then have a part of that asset and you benefit from, the economic growth in that asset as it occurs over time.
Yep.
And that really gives people an opportunity to far earlier in life be able to get on the property ladder. Now, that isn't the same as buying a whole one to live in, but for a lot of people that, that promise is not possible anyhow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the motivation is how do we take the best assets in the world and make them available to more people?
Okay, interesting. So we're just in the stage of about to go live. License obviously moved to the UAE quite recently. You was telling me that for the last 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What do we expect to see from Tokenvest within let's say the next 5 years?
Wow. As a rapidly growing startup, and sometimes you wonder about what 5 weeks looks like for the last 5 years. But yeah, it's
what's the long-term vision? Yeah,
the vision long-term, there's quite a lot of ideas. Matt, my co-founder, and I, we allow ourselves an hour a day of ideation, and then we try to get back to work and deliver on the things we previously agreed we'd do. But there's a lot in pipeline. Yeah. So,
and how crazy do these ideas go to?
They're getting pretty crazy. You got to allow yourself to, to think about the art of the possible.
Dream big.
And, this is why Dubai is such an interesting place. Correct. Because it's a place where I think aspirations, have the possibility of being allowed to come true in a way that, I certainly struggled in other more traditional financial services markets and traditional environments where I was operating. So, where are we going to, over the course of this year, we are going to see, real world assets come online. On the platform, we're going to see a growing number of investors being able to participate in things that they couldn't before. The products we're creating just don't exist. How do you get a small fraction of, how do you get a $10,000, let's use funds, for example. Some fund products out there are highly desirable. Mm-hmm. They're high yield generating, but they're only accessible to very wealthy people. And let me explain that. There are two reasons why they're only accessible to wealthy people. Some of the best funds in the world you can only buy if you've got $5 million. That's the minimum buy. Well, by definition, you're pretty wealthy if you can put 5 million into a investment fund.
I would agree with that.
Now, but beyond that, the law in most places actually says you can only buy a product like that if you're a professional investor or accredited investor or qualified investor. That typically means you've got a lot of money. There are different definitions around the world, but broadly speaking, most markets will say that means you've got $1 million cash sitting around. And if you don't, well, you're just not allowed to buy these products at law, or they're not allowed to sell you those products.
Sure.
So we've got this situation where lots of the best products in the world are simply not accessible. Now, we're going to take those products, we're going to acquire them, and then we're going to break them up and sell them down in tokenized form. So again, you'll be able to come into a product that you can only get at $1 million or $5 million price point, but now you can come in and have a 10 grand slice of it and enjoy, be investing in the same way that hedge fund managers do, because you've now got access to these incredible products. So over the course of this year, we're going to see a number of asset classes, coming online. There's a couple of really interesting commodities projects we're working on as well, tokenized precious metals in particular. So I think that's going to be the main focus for this year. Then there are a number of other ideas. We're looking at other financial products. We've been exploring the launching of our own, several of our own tokens that represent either different components of our business or utility as well. So we'll be looking to bring those on board over the course of this year. And then, at the moment, we're a centralized marketplace, if you like. So we operate a primary market distribution and then the ability for investors to take those assets and trade them on our marketplace. The future, which probably isn't this year, going down that path is, and we're working with the regulators on how this is going to work, is how do we take those assets into DeFi? How do we take these assets, like crypto assets have done, into decentralized peer-to-peer exchange environments? Sure. And that's going to be super exciting. And once we've got a lot of real-world assets on-chain, like significant value, we've just done a report last week entitled "Where Are All the Tokenized Assets?" and the problem's been regulatory hurdles. But as we start getting a large value of assets on-chain, we're going to see the growth of things like collateralized lending using, tokenized assets, the same way as we've seen with, lending against crypto assets.
Yep.
Because it's so easy. The technology allows you to lock an asset as a form of security, lend against it instantaneously.
There's
and all
a lot
that
of
good
solutions
stuff
out now
for
lending your crypto against assets. Yeah.
Well, imagine taking your house, tokenizing your house, and being able to say, hey, lending pool, can I borrow 40% of the value of my house for a short term, on something?
Of course.
Now you're using your assets as collateral in a way that just isn't possible today. Yeah. You can do it with your USDT.
There's only various tokens that they'll accept, though. Yeah, I mean.
Oh, but that's what we're working on. Is you asked for the future is
sure.
But actually, I think what we're seeing is a lot of interest from lenders, because you can lend against your Bitcoin or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But they're a highly volatile asset. Yeah.
They're extremely volatile.
Yeah. So lenders are cautious about lending against crypto assets. They want, high levels of collateralization because of the volatility. Well, real world asset tokens are not going to be nearly so volatile. Property markets can go up and down, but not like Bitcoin does over the course of a day. So they'll be much more stable assets and therefore actually are far more attractive to lenders.
Incredible. Well, I think it's incredible what you've done and what you're building to be regulated in an unregulated market is something special. So I think you're definitely ahead of the game. I can only imagine what's going to happen moving forward. So let's look. I mean, here at BetTalks, we talk about everything from gaming/gambling, crypto, blockchain, Web3, everything emerging tech within the UAE. Now, I know you're new to the UAE. How have you finding doing business within Dubai? And as I know you was in Hong Kong for 11 years, correct?
Yeah, before he was Hong Kong 11 years and before that 11 years in the UK and originally from Australia, so a bit of a journeyman, yeah. Absolutely.
How are you finding that transition period of doing business within Dubai compared to Hong Kong, let's say?
It's probably not as challenging as the transition of moving from, a Western kind of world like Australia and the UK when I first moved to Hong Kong, and particularly into the Greater China environment. Probably culturally that was a bigger challenge. Yeah. But yeah, there are some very fundamental differences to the way things operate here.
Do you speak Cantonese? Mandarin?
No, I don't. No? But my wife's Hong Kong Chinese and speaks Cantonese, so I outsource that function.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so. In fact, we're in the Hong Kong press today announcing a collaboration with a broker-dealer, Hong Kong Vax, in Hong Kong today. And I got my wife to proofread the Chinese version of the press release. So handy when you have the in-house Chinese capability.
Sure. So back to my question. How are you finding sort of, obviously you've incorporated in Dubai, within the UAE. Mm-hmm. How are you finding that transition for sort of business here compared to the rest of the world?
Yeah, look, it's a fantastic. I think I've been an expat for 25 years. Expats are, by definition, I think, quite good networkers because you're all away from home. You're not in your home. There's just a general tendency towards collaboration amongst expats.
We have something in common.
Yeah, exactly. We're not at home anymore.
No, of course, yeah, correct.
And obviously, this is I think one of the highest density expat communities in the world.
80%.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible. So most people here are expats. So from that perspective, it's amazing the kind of every time you ask someone to introduce you to someone, it's expected you to. It'd actually be rude not to ask here, kind of thing.
Correct.
Which is fantastic. So from a networking and business development perspective, that's really, really fantastic. The regulatory environment is probably the main reason I'm here. Like the creation of the VARA framework to allow us to do the thing that you still can't do in Europe or in Hong Kong. And one of the reasons we've just signed a collaboration with counterparties in Hong Kong and Singapore and London recently is they can do parts of what we can do, but they can't do all of it. And so they're quite keen on us doing some of the issuance components here. So we have this regulatory benefit here. Yeah. And that comes from Dubai's ambition. It's when you read the D33, what is the plan for Dubai? What's the vision of Dubai? And then when you line up your kind of business ambitions with the ambitions of the city, and the ambitions of the country, that's quite exciting because, it just has this, we're creating, almost out of nothing, we're creating the best city in the world.
For sure.
And it's like, that sounds great. That's exactly what I want to be part of. So there's that underlying kind of nothing's impossible. We are, is this going to make Dubai better? Is it, then crack on.
Yep.
So that's really exciting, that kind of philosophy of the city.
Absolutely, agreed. So talking obviously as Dubai is expanding and the growth of the UAE, let's look at one factor which we do talk about a lot here at BetTalks. What's your thoughts on gaming/gambling becoming regulated within the UAE?
It's not I'm a lawyer by training for many years, and I've done a lot of gambling and gaming work in lots of markets around the world. I won't name names, obviously, but sitting in Hong Kong, I did a lot of work acting for some of the biggest names in the industry on their, operations in mainland China where,
very unregulated.
Well, gambling's just illegal.
It's same as Russia.
It's completely illegal, and yet they're the biggest gambling markets in the world. Yeah. So it's an interesting topic. I mean, it's not my main area. It's not my area of focus now, but I'm watching with interest the kind of announcements about developments and casino licenses and these types of things happening in the region. And I can remember the first casino being announced in Melbourne, my hometown, and Crown Casino being launched there. So I've witnessed sort of gambling being illegal turning into
regulated,
regulated and 5-star hotel giant casinos appearing on the side of rivers and beaches and things of that nature. So I've seen it in other markets. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, it's part of the growth ambitions of the city for sure. And you can see, not just Dubai, but the other Emirates are actually stealing a bit of a march on some of that stuff. So
I believe that they're wanting to expand the Emirates. Obviously, Dubai is the infrastructure is very developed. There's not much happening in Ras Al Khaimah, let's face the facts. But it is official. The Win is being built as we speak.
So I hear.
On Marjan Island.
On the island, yeah.
Yeah. It is.
It's only twice the size of the one in Vegas or something.
4 times the size.
4 times, there you go.
The gaming floor is going to be 4 times the size of the one in Las Vegas. Have you been to Vegas?
I have, yes. I'm obviously not allowed to admit it, but yeah.
Yeah. 0x processing are focused mainly on 2 things: acceptance rate and security, achieving an unprecedented level by combining blockchain infrastructure with broad account security measures. 0x processing, a crypto payment gateway for your business. I know, obviously, you're more of a crypto sort of blockchain guy, but what is your thoughts on locals, let's say Emiratis, accepting gambling here? Do you think it'll be accepted?
I've got no idea. I mean, I genuinely have no idea. The thing that immediately jumped into my head when you said it was the way Singapore manages gambling, which is very interesting, where the government makes it quite hard for locals to gamble. Yeah. Like, the only people who have to pay to go into the Marina Bay Sands casino are locals. Whereas if you turn up with a foreign passport, you can come in for free and lose your money.
Yeah.
Now that says something.
They don't want locals in there.
Yeah, and so it's quite interesting. And I don't necessarily think, I haven't heard strong views from local Singaporeans on that issue, but it clearly indicates a kind of view from a government about, well, maybe gambling isn't the best thing for our people. Certainly let's let the tourists come and lose their money.
Of course, for sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's good to get everyone's feedback. Everyone has an opinion on everything, and that's what we're here for. Obviously, get feedback and get different people's opinions. So, you are a crypto guy. I can see you're very experienced, and you're building this TokenVest, obviously, which has taken many years and now licensed and regulated. So, let's look at the actual crypto space. Is crypto gambling?
Is crypto gambling? It's not supposed to be. I'll try not to get too legal on this, but the argument as to why crypto is unregulated is that it's a utility token. It has a function, and that function is why people buy it and sell it. But the function of crypto that would be argued as to why it's not a financial product is it's because it's used for as a currency for spending to pay for network services. And then there's the truth, which is 99 point, I don't know what, but most of the remaining 1% of all crypto is never used for paying for network services on the underlying protocol. So to that end, its primary function tends to be trading, and that's what it's used for. Now, when does investment become gambling? And there's clearly a continuum, I think. And I think even within investment products, there's high and low risk products. You buy a US Treasury, it's safe as houses, you get your 4%. It's not going to disappear. The US government's not going to disappear. Well, you hope not. So it's at the very safe end of investment, if you like. Whereas you get much more speculative investment products. Now, I think, to my mind, crypto is just the next notch along that continuum. It's clearly got a lot of volatility. It's got a lot of speculation in it. Like, what drives crypto markets to be so volatile? Because there are no underlying fundamentals.
Community-based building.
It's attention. I think meme coins have been the evolution of that again, where they haven't even attempted to pretend there was any utility.
So that's a gamble.
Yes, one would think so. But it's quite an interesting one, because what is it? It's sort of monetized. I think of meme coins in a way as I'm old enough to remember, swap cards for footy players and, the likes. Yeah. It's like a digital version of a swap card almost. It's some sort of community collectible something.
Well, there's no usability factor, let's face the facts on that.
Not really, but it seems to be fun. It seems to create community. It seems to have people engaged more than just making money. It feels like.
Dogs and frogs with their tongues out.
I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it.
No, I agree.
But there's something going on there.
Yeah.
Now, to me, I've been very skeptical about meme coins, but I've also been fascinated by the level of consumer engagement, particularly retail engagement in meme coins. What crypto and meme coins, unregulated crypto and unregulated meme coins has shown, and NFTs as well, the digital monkey phase, all of that stuff showed
Bored
me...
ape.
Yeah, it showed me one thing. Retail wants to play. They want to participate.
Wow.
And one reason why they're not allowed to participate is because of all those things I said earlier. Only rich people can participate in investment products. Suddenly crypto, meme coins, NFTs appear, and they're unregulated, so everyone can buy them. And haven't they just?
Yeah.
And so just by being able to participate...
And everyone can take part, because they're 0.0000.
Exactly. Now... that's kind of the core of what we're doing. We're taking those real investment products, but we're now legally allowed to have retail come and buy them. And again, we can do fractionalisation. I mentioned $10,000 earlier as a minimum buy price on our first product. That number will come down. Yeah. And once you've bought the first 10, we're using that as a gating figure. That will actually get you something like 400 tokens. You can then sell individual tokens. So you'll be able to trade at the 100 dirham, mark, if you like, something like that. So we're bringing that price point right down, but now for something real. And so it is that kind of mixture of real financial products that retail weren't allowed to participate in historically, mixed with all of the accessibility, small bite size, and speed and efficiency of blockchain that you get in these other unregulated assets. And it's really that hybridation of the two.
Yeah, I see that. So we spoke briefly before we started filming. You've been around the crypto space for quite a while. You were there around the ICO market, that sort of 2017 time, same kind of sort of time as myself, to be honest. So we've seen a lot of change. Goes varying from ICOs to NFTs, now to meme coins. Where do you see crypto, and what do you see to sort of the movement of it in the near future?
I think there's different asset classes within. I think about it. I think about it in terms of different asset classes. So I see stable coins, as a digital form of a dollar or a dirham or whatever it might be, but a digital version of a dollar. And I see the efficiency of a stable coin, the ability to do instant transfer. Try and do a transfer of money from your bank somewhere. This is a painful, expensive, horrible, ridiculous process. Yeah. Is there any wonder that stable coins are taking off and you can move it in an instant from one wallet to the next, from one person to the next, basically for free?
Global instant payment transactions. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think I almost carve out stable coins as their own asset class in that sense, or tokenized deposits. And I think in that sense, we're going to see the development of many, many stable coins, not just not just the ones that exist today or the ones that'll maybe, the central bank digital currency type things. But I think we're going to see large corporates effectively transitioning things like loyalty systems onto a stable coin, like a wooden dollar, some sort of digital version of their own in-house currency. And it might be pegged to a dollar or a dirham or whatever else, but effectively just to bring efficiency within their own internal organisation and to replace those traditional loyalty systems that we've already seen. In terms of crypto itself, I don't know. Again, I'd probably separate Bitcoin from the rest. Bitcoin seems to be becoming, broadly accepted as the new digital form of gold. So it's a reserve asset. Everyone's, 6 months ago, you weren't really hearing people talk about, well, Bitcoin's at, this level of the value of gold. But now you are. Now people are starting to really talk about, we're still eight times less the market cap of gold, but we're on the way. Yeah. So I do see Bitcoin moving towards being a reserve asset, and with it, we're already seeing less volatility in that asset than perhaps we are with the other altcoins. So I do see it moving towards being a reserve asset, and there's lots of talk about nation state Bitcoin reserves from the US and other markets. So I think for sure that's going to happen. I don't see it becoming a payment. I don't see people using Bitcoin for payment, really. I think stable coins will win that future. For a lot of other cryptos, I think there is going to be a reckoning at some point, because if you look at the fundamentals of crypto projects, they're valued very highly. Like if you thought about their native token the same way you might think about a share in a company, and then you looked at the economic engine of the company, in this case the underlying crypto project, there is a very massive disconnect. Like the multiples of share value to traditional company value, if you do that same analysis in crypto, it just isn't sustainable. So are people going to continue just trading on prices for all of these projects that are, tens, hundreds of thousands, multiples of underlying revenues? I don't know. Seems amazing that they're doing it today, but they are. Correct, yeah. So I don't know, but I just wonder if there isn't going to be we're in the midst of a bull market, so everyone's feeling good. But as we've seen these bull markets come to an end and then there are bear markets. Yeah. I look at the coin market cap, that little blue bar, how much of the treasury is left versus how much is already in supply, because effectively the underlying protocol is having to live off treasury. And that treasury is going up and, depending on what's left, they're slowly deploying it. It's going out in market, so they've no longer got it. But the value of that treasury can change dramatically. Like most altcoins lost 90-95% of their value in the last downturn. Yeah. Is that going to happen again?
It's a good analysis.
How many protocols are going to survive the next bear?
Very good.
Because if you look at those blue bars now compared to this time in the cycle 4 years ago, there's a lot more of the blue bars gone. So people a lot of protocols aren't holding as much asset as they used to. Now, are they eventually just going to run out? Mm-hmm. What are they going to do about that? So I can see consolidation coming in the market. There are far too many protocols, in my view. Like, do we need 1,000 layer one protocols to do the very few things that blockchain is currently being used for?
Yeah.
I don't think so. We don't have 1,000 different cloud service providers. today that are offering, that we have a handful that are successful. So I can see consolidation around a number of winning protocols happening, and therefore the consequences to the associated cryptocurrency is that not all will survive, in my view.
Great analysis. Yeah, I like it. So one thing you did mention was stable tokens. Is Tether USDT here to stay?
It may have achieved too big to fail status at whatever it is, 100 billion.
Billion. Yeah, you've got Vanguard and BlackRock looking into it now.
You've also got Europe kind of forcing exchanges to delist it and stop using it, and so there's a bit of a regulatory.
They're under investigation from the FCA weekly apparently.
Yeah.
And so many companies are using this.
Yeah. I mean, what's always made me uneasy is why aren't they just showing their reserves? In a clear and transparent way. Well, the idea of a stable coin is I've got $100, I've put it in the bank, I've saved it there, and I've now issued, a digital representation of $100.
Yeah.
But it's okay because the real 100's still over here. That was the core principle of a dollar-backed stable dollar. But they've never really quite shown that number, which that raises questions, I think.
It's the fastest form of payment transactions the world's ever seen.
Yeah, but USDC does it as well, but they have shown their reserves. I'm picking on Tether for collateralization. I'm not picking on them. I'm making the observation about have they really got as many dollars backing up the number of digital dollars? They say they do. Nobody's really sure.
No one's really sure, yeah.
What we do know is that none of the banks today have anything like as many dollars as they've lent out. So, I don't want to, it's easy to maybe get down on the sort of levels of collateralization of stable coins. But, traditional financial institutions lend out, 8-9 times as much as the dollars they've ever collected. So they're sitting on a far higher leveraged position, which is why banks fail when, things happen.
Correct.
So, I think it's here to stay, I would say. I think it will evolve. What it means for, Europe's current, hammering of them particularly is, I think, probably going to be more detrimental to Europe than it is to Tether, to be honest. So,
yeah, agreed. So we've looked at the pros of crypto and obviously the market itself. Now, Tokenvest as a whole, right? You are regulated, you are licensed, but there are many companies that are not.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are other companies, there are other tokens that are doing very similar to what you guys are doing. Okay. I think there was one called Fire once. Now, where do you see the plus side to that and also the negative side to that?
The plus side to other people.
Well, let's rephrase that. How are you separating yourself away from the rest? Yes, you're licensed. I get that.
Yeah. So it's a great question because being regulated, going through the regulatory licensing process, which is not easy, having to maintain the level of, monthly supervision and reporting we have to do to our regulator and the size of team that we have to have. We have to have responsible officers and chief compliance officers and data protection officers and information security officers. You have to have a team of, pretty serious people, just like you would if you were a traditional financial business. So there's a big burden on us as a regulated entity. And so it can be frustrating when you see other businesses seemingly just launching without having to do that. Now, we are seeing enforcement here in the UAE. So we've seen, a number of enforcement actions already against entities that are particularly, breaches of the marketing rules. They tends to be the point because they're marketing a tokenized whatever, or they're marketing a particular asset and they haven't got a license. And, so that's where we've seen the enforcement happening is a breach of marketing regs, and those businesses are being shut down. So I think that's going to happen. I think the bigger concern for me for the industry is that the rogue operators taint the industry. And we've seen this with every iteration of Web3 adoption to date. Bitcoin never did anything bad. It didn't. It gets tainted with, criminals, use Bitcoin. Well, that's lucky that no criminals ever used a US dollar. Well, of course they have. Yeah.
Of course.
So, everyone, Bitcoin was bad because everyone lost their money when FTX collapsed. No, it was FTX that was the bad operator, the centralized marketplace that was taking people's money in and deciding to play games with it elsewhere without people knowing. So
unregulated.
Well, well, I got a long story about this. I mean, I met Sam in Hong Kong, where I was based, when he was just getting going, and the SFC refused to regulate them and just forced him offshore effectively out of Hong Kong, which did not protect Hong Kong investors who had their money on that platform when it all collapsed. So I have some views about the regulator's role in not taking responsibility for what was happening, but that's a wider choice. But it's these bad actors that taint the market, and we're now starting to meme coins. I've been somewhere between dismayed and fascinated by. But now we're starting to see the truth of all the rug pulls, and there was just the one last weekend, linked with politicians getting involved and all this stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of hype. It's
all hype. It's all sentiment and hype and pumping price and timing your exit and using retailers' exit liquidity for insiders and all that terrible stuff. We're now starting to see the reality of what's been happening in meme coins for the last 12 months starting to be the story. Now, I think that's going to kill it. People are just going to be, hang on, this is just a whole lot of insiders pumping up a price and using me as exit liquidity, and I'm not going to play that game anymore. So for me, and we saw it with rug pulls and NFT scams and fraud and insider trading on OpenSea. And if you look at the whole history of asset, there was people looking to make very, very quick money, essentially fraudulently one way or another. Now, what worries me for tokenization of real-world assets is the unregulated bad actors who have the same motivation about making a quick buck, issuing bad product. How do people really understand the difference between coming to a proper regulated forum, particularly if they then see a non-regulated forum that may be offering products that look like they're going to have juicier returns? It's that kind of risk. So what worries me with the lack of enforcement against bad operators is it taints the whole market, and we have seen this throughout the history of Web3.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. I like your analysis. You're a very smart guy. So one more question before we wrap things up. It's been great having you on the show, by the way. I've learned a lot actually today.
Thank you.
Now, you are a tech guy, okay? Dubai is obviously becoming this emerging tech hub of the world. What's your thoughts on AI technology?
Well, I'm very excited about, let me talk about this from the perspective of our own business. And Sophie from our marketing team, who's just sitting behind me here, knows every time we do anything, I'm saying, is there an AI tool which will make us be able to do that faster, better, cheaper? Wow. So we are pushing incredibly hard within our own business to use AI adoption in everything we do. So that's very much my own perspective. Now, just this week, I've spent the last 9 months learning a lot about UAE law, which is incredibly complicated because of the different, free zones and offshore zones and everything else. And I was a lawyer for many years, but not here. I've spent a lot of time researching some of the sort of structuring that we're using to bring assets to market over the last 9 months, talking to a lot of lawyers, engaging lawyers. There's a new research tool that ChatGPT's just brought out in the last week. I've put the detailed question that I've been wrestling with into that tool 2 days ago. The best legal advice I've seen from anyone on that topic came out within 9 minutes with all the citations and everything else. Now, that's just an example. And I'm like, wow, this is the best lawyer I've ever worked with. Genuinely. And I've been a senior partner in a global law firm, so I've seen a lot of junior lawyer reports and work. Yeah. So it is incredible what's now possible. And I'm pushing for it in our business in terms of, visual production of, still images, video images. My homemade AI video images are not convincing my marketing team yet, but it's amazing where they are today, and I wonder where they'll be in, 12 months. Sure. So for me, AI is extraordinary how quickly it's evolving. And, in terms of the tone around it I'm trying to set within the business is let's challenge ourselves. Where can we supplement what we do as experts? Because this AI is it's an incredibly powerful and perhaps faster than any tool we've seen before. But I'm old enough to remember dictating in law firms and having secretaries type up letters on typewriters. When I very first started, and then we progressed to a Wang.
Now you're showing your age now.
Yeah, I am. Then I remember we moved to a Wang green screen computer. Yeah. It was pretty exciting stuff. So, but none of those, those developments made us faster and better and able to move us up the value chain of what we were actually doing as professionals. Now, for me, this is happening at a pace we've never seen before, but I want to bring that same philosophy of how do we just use all these tools? How do we keep abreast of what they are? How do we make use of them in a way that makes us do the more cerebral, higher-end stuff? And the skill is then in the prompting. But my skill as a senior lawyer was in the prompting of junior lawyers.
Sure.
How do I give them the right instructions? How do I give them the feedback? How do I get them to change? In fact, when I think about it, I've been prompting, lawyers for 25 years.
Yeah.
Now I can do it with an AI agent at a speed that's amazing. So, yeah, I think it's very exciting.
I did hear a theory. It was a guest that was on the show a couple of weeks back that property companies, real estate companies now are going to be integrating AI for AI technology, viewings, etc. So that could be something that Tokenvest could
yeah,
look
we've
at
already had a demo of a robo agent who can walk around, the property that isn't yet built, because you've now got a 3D wire cage environment where they can do a walk around tour. So we've seen that. We've seen aerial flybys of what it'll look like. So absolutely, we're super keen on bringing some of that technology to bear on the user interface, because we're bringing a new way of investing in property. We want to bring a new interface and a new user experience. And actually, one of those tools we saw had a game function. There is actually a Dubai digital twin fortnight capability. And we're like, well, hang on, why can't we take the Dubai digital twin that's used in Fortnite and start showing the properties we're selling in that context?
Yeah.
For example. Now, early days, but we're already looking at it and thinking about it.
Fantastic stuff. Sounds great. I definitely think that obviously AI technology can integrate with Tokenvest, and a lot of exciting things for the future. One last question before we wrap things up. Where do you see BTC in 5 years' time, price-wise?
Oh, I hate that question. I believe its fundamentals have got to a point where it's not going away. I believe that the wave of institutional and now sovereign adoption that's underway is good. So 5 years, it depends where you are in the cycles, isn't it? But for a lot of years I've been saying I won't be surprised to see $1 million Bitcoin at some point. I don't see any reason why it won't.
I agree.
If you look at, there's a really big difference between currencies and Bitcoin. Currencies will guarantee will continue to depreciate. It's what they've done. It's what they will always do. They'll keep printing more of it. The US dollar is worth something like 97.5% less than it was when they first brought it out. They use the word inflation. It's not. No. What's actually happening is deflation of our currency. That cannot happen with Bitcoin, because why are we getting deflation in our currency? Because central banks keep printing more of it. You can't print any more Bitcoin. There's 21 million of them. Yeah. Nobody knows quite how many, but it's probably about 1 million that have already been lost down the equivalent of the digital sofa. So there's only so many of them. Yeah. And I let's put it this way: I've bought one each for my two kids for their 21st birthday. So
okay. And how old are they now?
5 and 7.
Oh, okay. Let's see what they're worth then.
It's funny, my 5-year-old. Now, I told him about it. He's like, every day, he's like, how's my Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about it.
No.
What have I started?
We'll discuss it when you're 21. So. Brilliant stuff. Scott, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Rick.
All the best with Tokenvest.
Thank you.
Exciting times ahead. Check out Tokenvest to all of our viewers here at BetTalks, powered to you by 0x Processing. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Rick.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Woo!